I have a Kohler Pro 17 horsepower OHV, model number CV490S, on a Sear Craftsman LT2000 lawn tractor. Oil is dripping from the muffler while the motor runs. The motor cranks and runs fine, other than the blowing oil from the muffler. Is there a simple seal/gasket that needs replacing, or is it something much worse, such as a cracked engine block?
Hi, my name is welcome to JustAnswer. Check your oil to see if it's thin or smells like gas. If it does, do not run it.
It doesn't look too thin. The oil seems to be draining into the muffler. If the head gasket was leaking, then the oil would drip external to the engine, right?
Does the oil smell like gas? When a head gasket goes, it usually cakes oil around the deck and smokes like a 5-alarm fire after it's ran a few minutes.
Not that I can tell. What is the most probable cause of oil leaking into the exhaust manifold?
There is a few things: too much oil, the wrong type of oil. Is it smoking?
Oil is leaking into the exhaust manifold. When the engine cranks, it blows heavy smoke, as well as liquid oil, out of the muffler. In idle, the engine runs. If I put a load on the engine, then it chokes out. Oil is leaking out of the oil pan. I refilled the oil before running it the last time. The oil was not overfilled. The problem is oil leaking. I'm trying to figure out if there's a credible leak path, such as a damaged gasket, or if the engine block has cracked. My son was the last to use the mower, but swears that nothing odd happened while he was last using it, before I go to the trouble of taking the engine apart or taking it to a small engine repair shop. I'm worried that the engine block has cracked, but I'm trying to find out if there is something else that I should consider.
Usually when oil is leaking through the muffler, it's because the carburetor isn't stopping the gas flow and gas gets into the crankcase and mixes with the oil, which thins it, and then it bypasses the valves and gets into the exhaust. But the dead giveaway on that is it's thin and smells like gas. You previously said the oil doesn't smell like gas. The head gasket could be leaking, or the sump base gasket, but the sump base would leak oil all around the engine deck of the tractor.
I see no evidence of external oil leaks, only into the exhaust manifold. I will crank the mower again this evening to look more closely for evidence of gas-diluted oil. Even after the engine is turned off, the oil continues to drain into the exhaust manifold. I expect the oil pan to be virtually empty when I check it later this afternoon.
http://www.searspartsdirect.com/parts-direct/part-model/color-part/repair-maintenance/questions-answers/oil leak out of muffler, Craftsman lawn/model CV490-275-08/0598/150350/36947 model number equals C.V. 49,027,508. This is a common problem with Briggs & Kohler. When you can check the dipstick and see if it has any sign of a gas smell, a lot of times it folds the sump, gets into the OHV and then down into the exhaust. The fact you said it was oil and liquid really makes me think your carb is draining gas down into the crankcase. Please let me know what you find when you get home, and if this is the case, do not try to start it, as we will have to rove and rebuild the carburetor, then change the oil, etc.
I believe that the oil pan has a drain plug. I'll drain the oil this afternoon to see what's in it. A carburetor problem would actually be good news to me. Smile if I pulled the carb apart. Is there something that I could look for to help confirm your suspicion?
Well, besides the oil being thus and smelling like gas, remove the carburetor, turn it upside down, shake the fuel out of it first. Hold it upside down and try to blow into where the fuel line hooks up to, With it upside down, the float should be closed and you can't blow into it. If you go into a quiet area and blow, you may hear the slightest hiss. That tells you the needle is not sealing with the brass valve inlet that the needle fits in. Most times the brass inlet valve, which is pressed in, wears and has to be removed and replaced. When you drain the oil, you will see as it's draining if it's thick or not.
I smelled the dipstick and there's no doubt that there's a significant amount of gas in the oil pan. Tell me again how the gas goes through the float and into the oil pan.
Well, we found the problem. The carburetor has a needle and float. When gas fills the carburetor bowl, the float closes. This in turn makes the needle seal with the inlet valve, which is brass. Over time, brass being a soft metal wears, so when the float closes, then needle does eye to the inlet valve, but it doesn't seal. The gas then bypasses the carburetor and gets down eye to the crankcase and mixes with the oil. To fix this, you need to remove and fully rebuild the carburetor, meaning replace the brass inlet valve which is pressed in. After rebuilding the carburetor, then get the oil and oil filter, etc. I will send you a link walking you through the carburetor rebuild. This says Briggs, but they both use Walbro LMT carburetor. http://outdoorpower.com/repairs/Briggs_Walbro_LMT_carb.asp.
Thank you so much. I have the service manual for the Kohler model CV490S engine. I'll pull it tonight and inspect it, and we'll drain the oil pan and remove the oil filter. I probably can't get a carb rebuild kit and filter until Monday. I'm hoping that my local small engine repair shop will have them both in stock. I am very happy that the carb seems to be the problem. I was really afraid that I had a seriously damaged cylinder or piston rings.
I'm glad it was too. It's a common problem over time. The brass inlet valve will have to be replaced. Don't change the oil until after it's fixed.
I will definitely give you a good rating. I did pop the carb off, turned it upside down, let the residual fuel drain out, attached a 1/4 ID Tygon tube to the fuel inlet, and glue. I could definitely hear it hissing. Further confirmation of your theory. I'm debating between rebuilding the carb and buying a new one. How difficult is it to rebuild the carb? I've looked through the webpage Carburetor Guild that you sent me and it seems easy enough, but I'm still not sure if I want to tackle it. How difficult will the rebuild be?
The hardest part is extracting that inlet valve. You could take the carb and have it rebuilt at a shop, but the hardest part is getting the inlet valve out.
I think that I ruined the fuel inlet port. It had a brass insert. I was tapping it with 1/4x20 tap, per the web instructions that you had sent me, when I realized that I had tapped threads through the brass and was opening up the inlet tube ID. The rebuild kit doesn't have a brass inlet, it only has a rubber O-ring seal. I don't think that there's a way to recover from this mistake. Skeptical, I've attached a photo of the fuel inlet port. Any suggestions?
Can you give me the carburetor numbers etc. on the carb? You'll still find the new brass inlet will have a bottom to it. You need to make a little puller like they show on that page, but to get the right inlet valve I need the numbers etc. off the carburetor.
Reading off the carburetor, also sent by attached photo, 95A1563, 120531118. Above that number is per the instructions that you had sent. I'd expected to see LMT. On the Sears Direct website, when I'd entered my engine spec number, it told me that my carburetor should be PN12853-118S, which doesn't give with the number that is etched on the carb. I'm really confused. Also, attached is a photo of the rebuild kit. Is that dome-shaped disc the replacement inlet valve seat?
http://www.kohlerengineparts.openginesparts/fuel system/repair kits. You need the first one or the second one depending on if you have a fuel pump or not. The first one is for the command motors without the fuel pump, the second one with it. It will have the round inlet seat in it and a tool to remove the old one.
The service manual I have says that I need a .213 tool to press the insert into the inlet port. There's not much of the original brass insert left in the carb. Do I just need a pointy tool to scrap the rest of the insert out of the inlet port? My engine does have a fuel pump, BTW.
You would need the first kit. The kit you pictured does not have a replacement valve seat, the first one in the link I sent does.
What is the concave disc that comes in the 1275703S rebuild kit? I think it's aluminum.
That is like a Welch plug, the inlet seat is long and round, and the needle fits in it.
The service manual mentions a Welch plug, and mentions a .213 dia tool to insert the Welch plug, but it doesn't say where the Welch plug goes. Where does that concave Welch plug go?
The problem is the valve seat. I need to see the carburetor to find where the Welch plug goes, but the kit you have doesn't have the replacement valve seat.
Well, I've decided that I don't want to spend another $30 on a rebuild kit. I found a NIB 12 853-118S on eBay for $130. So, I'm cutting my losses and buying a new replacement carb. Thanks for your help, which led to the identification of a bad carburetor as my problem. I'm going to close out this session and give you a high rating. Thanks again for your patience with me and your sage advice.
Okay, I understand. I was hoping if the other carburetor kit wasn't opened it could be returned, etc. If you decide to tackle it, I am still here to help you, John.
Yeah, I didn't realize what all was in my rebuild kit until I had opened. I'd assumed that everything was included. I've ordered the new carb and will install it when it comes in early next week. Thanks again. Chuck.
If you have a home improvement or appliance question and want to chat with an expert now, visit justanswer.com/YTHI.